Welcome to the Brake Check Show on the Texas Truck Channel. Behind me we have the third generation Hyundai Kia Motor Group platform, otherwise known as the DN8. What that means in layman's terms is a 2022 Hyundai Sonata, and the most important part is N Line. In this platform, it's updated from the previous generation, and you get a shorter overhang on the front. The A-pillar is pushed back a little bit. The whole wheelbase is stretched out a little bit, and the roof line is a little bit lower, so it gets that long, low, and wide stance. This is a car that is polarizing in terms of style to a lot of people. It gets called a catfish all the time. We've driven a few of these now. It's probably the third or fourth one we've had time with, and we just like it more and more. It's aged really well. What that means is the designers knew exactly what they were doing. This one's covered in quartz white, has 19-inch wheels, and it just looks the part. And just to put it out there, for $35,000, I beg you to find something else that drives as well, that has 4 seats for adults. You're just not gonna beat it. All that covered, let's jump in the interior and see what Craig has to say about it.
In 2020, the Hyundai Sonata came out, or this current generation did. And when it came out, it won a bunch of awards for its interior, as it should. Its Hyundai Kia twin is the K5, and it's nice, but the word here with the Sonata compared to the K5 is maturity. This thing is way more mature. This one feels a little bit more, I don't know, less boy racer, and that you actually know what you're doing now, and it's fun and it's functional too. So let's talk about that. In the N-Line edition, you get what they call black on black interior. I don't know about you, this looks gray to me. So let us know what you think in the comments. But I'm okay with this gray. Normally gray is kind of boring, but this gray is just the right gray. It makes it feel a little more sporty. And that's probably the red stitching that is on the door, on the steering wheel, and on the dash. Everything's laid out well. You get a digital instrument cluster with different modes that change as you change the modes. That's pretty cool. Probably my favorite thing about the modes, we'll get into the drive section, is we put it in Sport Plus, it just turns the traction control off for you. Thank you. That's what I want to do. I want to hit the gas pedal and be a nut. And then you get the great Hyundai Kia infotainment, which has the sounds of nature, which we all know is the most important, if we're being honest. And then the rest of it just works well. You get a dual panoramic sunroof, you get plenty of room. Ron talked about the architecture lengthening the wheelbase, which means you can sit in the back as an adult and be comfortable. That part is the pony trick here. You can be comfortable with 4 adults and do all the fun sporty intentions we're gonna get into a little bit, all in one spot. That is great. But the best part, I'm gonna say the best part for last, and that is the seat I'm sitting in right now. This seat is unbelievable. Yes, it doesn't have ball chillers, but it's so good, we don't even care. And you know that we love it on this channel. The bolsters are just right. You can even adjust the bolsters and get it snug or a little looser, depending on what buffet you ate at last. With that, let's get into the shop and see what makes this thing go. Look, Hyundai and Kia has done a lot of good things. They've stolen a lot of engineers from Audi, BMW, the likes, all that good stuff. Marketing-wise, SmartStream. What are they talking about, SmartStream? Welcome to the under the hood portion of the G4KP, or otherwise known as the 2.5 liter turbo GDI plus MPI injection now, which means we get direct injection and port injection, and it works wonderful. This engine's got a neat trick up its sleeve, and one of the neatest things it has is it has CVVD. Lots of the letters and numbers I'm throwing at you, but that stands for Continuous Variable Valve Displacement. It's a really neat trick where on the actual cam, the lobe actually spins at a different rate depending on where it's positioned. There's a little gear that moves it. We'll see how long it lasts. It's got America's best warranty, so I'm sure it's not a problem, but what that does is it gives you intake opening and shortening depending on what you're doing. So if you're going full throttle or need economy, all that fun stuff, which is pretty cool. So who knows, maybe in the future, instead of VTEC on the side of the car, we'll see CVVD on the side of the car. I don't know, you let us know. It's an 88.5 bore and 101.5 stroke, which means it's a little under square, which means it's really torquey. When you get a longer stroke like that, you get more torque, and we get gobs of it here. In fact, we get 311 pound-feet of torque at 1650 RPM all the way to 4000 RPM. So you just get a table of it, and it starts early, like all modern turbo engines. Horsepower-wise though, there's no slouch there either. Unlike some of the Mazdas that are a little down on that, this one's not. 290 horsepower at 5800 RPM. And the best part, on 87 octane. This thing doesn't even recommend at 91 or 93 anywhere in the book or anywhere in the owner's manual. 87, that's all it is, all day long, nothing to worry about. It's paired to a wonderful 8-speed wet dual clutch transmission. And yes, some people we've talk about the clunkiness of it, maybe a dual clutch. You can feel it a little bit maybe when you're in reverse and you're kind of moving in a parking lot. but it's so slight, most people won't even notice. And I say it's worth the trade-off with the quick shifts, and they are lightning fast. All that's good for 22 city, 33 highway, 27 combined. In our combined driving, well, the turbo works really well, so we were getting closer to the city number. But we have actually on the highway hit the highway EPA rating of 33. So it's, again, it's the best of both worlds. It's kind of the theme of this car. With that, let's see if that continues on the suspension side with Brian.
First of all, it's 108 degrees. We're in a garage with no AC, and it really ticks Craig off when I apologize for shooting issues, wind, temperature, that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to. Craig, bring in the rubber. More importantly, this thing runs on a 245/40 19-inch wheel. I like the look of the wheel. It's like a basket weave. Looks really cool. This is a 245/40 19 Pirelli. It is not the summer tire option. You can have it on this car. We've driven that car. The lateral grip is a lot higher. But the trick with this, with the more mundane tire, it's still quiet and it does rolling burnouts through first gear, and then it shifts hard, seamlessly, and then through second gear. That's pretty impressive for something that's not automatic with no clutch. Just a lot of fun. You don't even try to do it, it just does it on its own. Now, the downside is the brakes work really well, but they're super dusty. We've touched the brake from the wheel once, and that's what we're dealing with there. So, just know that. Okay, starting up front, we have a McPherson strut design. We've seen this design before on lots of cars. It works well here as well. You have an aluminum knuckle, and basically steel everything else, save for the lower L arm. So the important parts of this are aluminum. The strut is a in-house produced Mondo branded strut. Hyundai, Kia, Mondo are all on the same label. The brakes are 2-pot floating units, and they've actually gone up on the inline. They've gone from a 12-inch to a 13.9-inch brake. That's a big improvement, and they do work. They don't fade. We've not had any issues with that. Also, another big difference is the steering ratio changes. It numerically goes down, but it means it gets sharper and more responsive. It turns in faster. It goes from a 13.27 to a 12.35 to 1 ratio. We like that a lot. I wish other cars did that. That's a big deal. The steering makes a huge difference here. You feel it. Out back, it's basically steel everything, save for the knuckle itself. So you do have aluminum knuckles front and rear. The rear brake is not vented like the front is. It's a single pot floating brake in the rear. Again, gets it done. Haven't noticed any problems there at all. You do have a divorced spring and shock in the rear. It looks awfully similar to a lot of other Hyundai Kia products, Sorento, Tucson, GV70, Santa Cruz. They're all very similar in the way that the shock mounts to the outside of the rail. You do have a steel subframe front and rear, and you can tell that it's there. And also you can tell if you look at the back of the transmission here. This thing certainly has a space for all-wheel drive if they chose to have it on this car. You can tell the platform's used elsewhere, but it works. So all that covered, let's put it on the road and show you how well it drives.
All right, Brian, enough smart stream, and it's hot outside, but it's got a wet dual clutch.
There is a heat advisory warning right now. The weather says 104, the dash says 108. Let's see what happens.
All right, hit it.
Wheel spin first.
Oh, there's those non-summer tires.
55 and 60 in 5.4 seconds.
Wow.
That is stupid for a car that costs this.
Yes, and that's, look, we've kind of touched on it throughout the whole episode, but
right,
this car does so many things.
And so well.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just so confident. So let's stay on task.
Yeah.
On task, besides just loving this thing. Let's get into dynamics.
Yep.
And step one, you've already mentioned it, seats. And what that means for me is immediacy. So when you go to turn in, it's just immediate. And for a car of this size, I mean, it could turn in faster with a shorter wheelbase.
Sure.
But for how long this thing is, it feels way more tidy than like an Accord or anything else that's that long in front-wheel drive.
Anything else in its segment is doing way better. If this was a Genesis, people would be like, oh, this thing's amazing. We'll talk more about that later.
Exactly.
But the seat-wise, yeah, it's holding you in place.
It's holding you in. So take, for example, an older Mustang without like a Recaro seat. You turn, your body then hits the side of the seat or the console or the door, whatever that stops your body's motion. That doesn't happen here.
No.
You just stay in the seat. You turn in, it's immediate and just goes. You're not waiting for suspension to load and then you turn. It just goes. So unlike an old pony car, this does it all at once instead of 3 stages of you load up, then suspension loads up, then tire loads up, then the car turns. This just does it all at once.
And along with that, though, not being too uncomfortable. There are
Absolutely.
some Recaro optional seats in a lot of other products.
Yeah.
And it's almost too bolstered. It's too much for everyday use. It's great for the track.
Right.
But it's too much for everyday use. This is one of the greatest blends of everyday comfort.
Seriously.
But also, I want to track this thing because it holds me in place.
Okay, and you hit me on, you kind of caught me. Well, I was going to end with that on this, but my takeaway on how it rides and drives, well, before I get there, the shock dampening is phenomenal. It's just like a Mark 7 GTI. It's just right. It's comfortable around town. You don't ever jostle or like spill something or like hurt your spine, but it loads up beautifully in corners and it handles really well. And then powertrain wise, you've got the dual clutch and the 2.5. This is the quietest 2.5 of Hyundai Kia that I've been in. There's no racket from the valve train that they are kind of known for doing.
Right.
And then the wet clutch is so refined. I can't believe I'm saying that. We've driven this in different Kia products, and it has not been as good as this one.
This one does seem to be the best version we've had, although we've loved it in all the other versions, to be fair.
This is just the most refined.
But I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people are saying that it can be a little clumsy because it's dual clutch. I think they're just dual clutch. They're assuming it's clumsy. It's not really.
It's not at all.
And maybe you do notice that every now and then, maybe you put it in reverse and you're backing up doing some turns.
You can catch that a little bit.
But it is so worth the quick shifts when you're actually hustling it. Who cares?
Well worth the trade-off.
Yeah.
And look, for the guy that misses his manual but has no choice in modern vehicle society, right, I find myself really happy with it. And it's good enough that I go, look, I know I can't get the manual, but I still love this for what it is.
Right.
And before we wrap it up, my greatest takeaway with this, I've been driving it all week, I keep telling myself, I need to go track this. And I don't know what the limitations are. This is not really a track car. It doesn't have Brembos or excessive cooling, although there's a lot of coolers in the front. I don't know what the weak link is for track duty, but I damn sure want to find out.
Oh man, me too.
That's how good it drives.
All right, Brian. With that, let's head it to the hill.
Absolutely no.
Oh no hill.
No hill.
Even though it's got a shorter chin, it's still no hill.
No hill.
Let's go get our final comments.
I like it.
All right, Brian. Time to wrap up this brake check show on the Texas Truck Channel. And because we're reviewing a car today, not a truck, we don't have a tailgate, so we're on this beautiful back 40 here.
This is cooler than the garage. That's why we're here.
It's just really hot. We just needed a breeze. But final thoughts on the Sonata N Line.
Oh, man. Okay, here's my one thing that kept coming to me as we were driving it. This is the kind of sedan or saloon that we would have watched on Top Gear, in the Clarkson era, and went, oh man, why does Europe get that and we don't? Like the Mondeo ST,
yes,
right? Or the old Focus RS before we had the RS with the Volvo 5-cylinder. This is that kind of car where you go, it's like, oh, it does the runabout stuff, it does the parking stuff, it drives incredibly well. It drives way better than a lot of muscle cars do. It handles so well, it's tuned so well. We should be clamoring to buy every single one of these. I'm just not seeing that happening, at least on the press side of things. What say you?
I completely agree with you, and I say that, look, automotive journalists are a weird breed.
For sure.
They like brown estates or wagons.
Long roof, yep.
With manual transmissions.
It's in our DNA.
If it's a diesel and rear-wheel drive, you can't make it, that's the halo car.
That's it.
Okay?
That's absolutely it.
Which doesn't exist because the general public wouldn't buy it because y'all are smart. So, but here's what I'm telling you. Automotive journalists are also dumb sometimes.
Sure.
And I include us in that.
Theory.
But they and we are missing this car, to your point.
Yeah.
It needs to be getting more coverage because it's good. I think the reason it's not getting coverage is because it's got its twin out there, the K5, the Kia K5.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yep.
Generally speaking, most people think it looks better. That's a subjective thing, but it's got the styling that appeals to more people.
Sure.
So it gets more coverage.
Which it does.
And then Hyundai's also got this other brand in their portfolio called Genesis that people are all excited about because it's newer. It's kind of in the old Lexus Infinity game, and they're bringing a lot of cool stuff to the table, and all their stuff's rear-wheel drive and all that business. This is not that. So because it doesn't have a Genesis badge and doesn't look like the K5, it's getting a little lost.
It's lost,
and it shouldn't be getting lost because you pointed out in the garage when we were doing that segment. The N Line gets you different things. It's not just a badge.
Right. No, this is not side skirts.
Yeah.
While it has that, it's not just wheels on a trim level.
Right.
It's mechanically different.
Yes.
And it drives brilliantly. And so much of the brilliance in this car is not just in the numbers. I know 390 horse is a lot, but in the world of EVs, it doesn't sound like much. This is tuned like the brilliance of a hot hatch of yesteryear. But now it's in a proper family sedan.
Yeah.
With no compromises.
Right.
Massive back seat, big trunk, 33 plus miles a gallon, rolling burnouts, dual clutch, turbo.
Regular octane.
It's like so livable. I don't know why this isn't on the top list of a lot of people, including ourselves.
Right.
And to be totally candid, I'm a little bit kicking myself as to why I haven't bought one already.
Right.
And part of that's because we have a truck channel in our name. That's a little hard to
Yeah,
brand.
that's a factor too.
Yeah. But with all that covered, I think that's really it. I really hope people, if you're in the sedan segment, if you're watching this video, you're probably considering one, please go drive one. You might be pleasantly surprised. And compare directly to the Kia K5. The K5 feels like a mass appeal, and the refinement's not quite as good.
Right.
It's not a bad car at all. We've had that recently. We love that car too. It's a beautiful thing to behold. But I feel like this thing has such refinement, it feels European. It doesn't feel Korean to me.
Kia K5 feels like a Ford Taurus compared to this. That feels like a BMW.
Completely agree.
Hard to believe
That's
that,
really
but
it.
it's true.
It's just screwed together that well.
And so you mentioned that we're on the Texas Truck Channel. That's the main reason that you hadn't got it.
Mm-hmm.
So are you trying to tell me you're going to buy a Santa Cruz because it's got the exact same powertrain?
I've discussed that. You know what? Stay tuned for that review coming up soon. We'll get into that aspect as well. Thanks for watching. Take care.
See ya.